So how do you realize it? Because that for me is usually around the second or third draft when I'm reading over. Because for me, the first draft is like the last 10% I phone in. I'm like, I don't know, they escape. But then later, when I'm reading back over what I've sort of written in that sort of feverish like first draft state, I'm like, oh, I talked a lot about this character's relationship with this person, right, or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, so in this story I'm exploring this relationship for me, right, and so that helps me figure out the ending, because then I'm like, okay, how can I pull that relationship through to make the end more meaningful? So that for me is usually like the second or third draft. Where do you feel like for you in the process was that moment where you were like, oh my gosh, this is I'm a better person because I've written these books?
I think my process is very similar to yours. The first draft is very feverish. As anyone who's read the book already knows how emotional it is. I was pounding that emotion into the text the first draft. But then I went to Bard and I used that book as my senior project, and so throughout the years after writing that first draft, I read a lot of philosophy and other research, and then I had to go through the process of the senior project, sit with Joseph O'Neill every week. I read a chapter, talk about it with him. It was a lot more methodical, so I was able to re-examine what I had written, what the characters went through, and originally the Monsters Among Us had a much bleaker ending, but through that process I was able to understand that it needed to have needed to go to a more hopeful trajectory.
And did that open up the sequel as well? Did you have sequels in mind the whole time, or did those sort of grow?
No. It was Monsters Among Us meant to be a standalone book. I'm actually not a sequel guy. I like doing standalone books more, but I finished it, and over the next year or so, it was like the characters were in my brain, like shouting at me, like there's more story to tell.
Yeah.
And then I developed In the Wake of Gods, and I was like, shit. The ending, the way it ends, necessitated a third and fourth book.
Yeah.
So I skipped from doing a standalone to a duology to then a 4-book series, but it will be done by 4, I promise.
Are you sure? The
Yes.
4 is going to be the okay. All right.
I have the ending mapped out in my brain. I know
Okay.
it's going to conclude and it's going to be done.
5 years when we're back for book 5. Remember this moment. You're like,